Well, hello everyone, and welcome to a new episode. Today we are going to install an application on a real Android device for anyone who hasn't done that before. This is a total beginner's tutorial, so if you already know how to do this, just skip it and watch the next episode, which is gonna air probably in a week or so. But for anyone who hasn't done this before and also wants to know how the emulator works in Android, and how to deploy full Framework 7 applications through Cordova and PhoneGap, um, then follow along and let's get started. All right, so we're on the Framework7 website right now, and what you want to do is you go to framework7.io, and then you click on templates, and you scroll down a little, and here are all the official Adobe PhoneGap templates, and I usually pick the one on the left. You can also try the other ones, but the one on the left is the most simple. So I'm gonna download that. Actually, yeah. And they have really good install instructions, so basically you can just follow along. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to, let's say, the temp folder and create a new directory for this video, and I'm just gonna paste this command here. It doesn't really matter if you use Cordova or PhoneGap. I prefer to use PhoneGap, but yeah. And you want to pick a name. I'm gonna call this Framework7 Droid because we're deploying on Android, and hit enter. And that's it. So let's check this out. Yeah, there it is. Oops. And there we have it. Next, we're going to install our dependencies. So npm install. Oh, and actually, before you start with this, make sure that you have PhoneGap or Cordova installed. This is actually very simple. So while this is installing down there, if you haven't done so already, you can just do npm install -g PhoneGap, as you can install PhoneGap through npm now, and you can also do the same thing for Cordova. Okay, and the -g will install the packages globally. All right, so here we are. So what we can do now is we look into the package.json file. Actually, we don't have to. We don't have to, because the install instructions are so good. We can run the application by calling npm run dev. So let's do that. All right, so the app is available now under localhost port 8080. So let's open that. And there we go. So I usually dock it like this. Yeah, there you have it. Now this is how you would probably develop on your app most of the time. So you can just you do changes to your code, and you just refresh your page here in Chrome and see the changes. But what we actually want to do is we want to run this first on the emulator, the Android SDK emulator, and then on an actual real device. Now I have Huawei P9 Lite device lying around here. So I'm going to install the app on that device, but it works pretty much the same on any other Android device as well. In order to do that, we first have to add the platform for Android. So I'm going to copy this and paste it. Whoops. Paste it here, and it's going to install uh, all the dependencies to run Android apps on emulator device. Okay, that's it. Next, we have to download and run Android Studio if you don't already have it. If you already have it, it's fine. If not, go to this URL or just Google for it and download Android Studio. That's what I'm going to do right now. Okay, so after downloading, we just run the installer. And on Mac, you just drag this here over there to the applications folder. And there you have it. So now we have installed Android Studio. I'm gonna run it. Actually, we can just click programs and then there it is, Android Studio. So I'm gonna keep the default settings here and not import anything. Okay, so it's gonna ask me for a few stuff. So I'm just keep everything on standard here, not mess too much. And so now it's downloading all the dependencies it needs for Studio. This is going to take quite some time. So yeah, I'll just cut here and come back later when this is finished installing. Okay, so now we have installed Android Studio. I'm going to click on Finish. So the next thing we're going to do is we need to export some variables to Android Studio, and for this we need to know where our SDK is installed. Now, on my computer, which is a Mac, it gets installed by default to my home folder /library/Android/SDK. That is. So this is the path that you should remember. If you're on a different operating system and if you don't know where your SDK is installed, there's a trick to it, okay? So you're going back to Android Studio and you click on Configure and then you click on SDK Manager. And then you can see where the SDK is installed here on the top, okay? So you copy this path or you write it down or whatever. So let me remove this. And what you then want to do, you're going to export the new variable. So this is how it looks like. You run export, you define a new variable called Android Home, and then make that point to the SDK path. Okay, so you run that. And the next thing you want to do is export the path to the emulator here, which is relative to our Android Home. Same thing for tools, which is here, and the platform tools. Now, something that's very, very important is that you have to define the path to emulator before tools, okay? So if you're on a Mac, just copy and paste this, and I think you will be fine. So I run this, okay? So now we have our path set for this instant of the terminal, but next time we log into our computer, it will be gone. So what we need to do is, I'm gonna copy this and open in my home directory the bash profile. And as you can see, I've already pasted those in here. Every time I log into my computer, these paths will be set. So I highly recommend that you export these paths in bash profile by just copy and pasting the two commands that I've shown you before. All right, so the next thing we need is Gradle. So I have Homebrew installed. If you don't have Homebrew, so you just go to their website and you run this line of code in your terminal and it will install Homebrew. And what it is, it's basically a package manager for all kinds of applications on your Mac. So I highly recommend to install that. And when you've done that, I already have Homebrew installed on my computer. I'm going to call brew install Gradle. Okay, so and as you can see, I've already installed Gradle on my computer. But if it's not there, it would just reinstall it and you would be fine. Okay, so next, we were almost there actually. All we need to do now is run Android Studio again. Oh, actually, it's already running. So I'm gonna hit cancel here. And I'm gonna create a new Android Studio project right here, which is not actually necessary, but I'm gonna show you in a few seconds why. So I'm just creating a test project here. I'm at next. And I pick the first option here to create a new phone and tablet app. Basically, you can pick anything you want here, which Android version you want to support. And I hit next. And I just keep hitting next because the only reason why we're doing this here is we want to get to the main view of Android Studio because we want to access the what's it called, the AVD, the Android Virtual Device Manager, and you can't do this from this view here. So let it run, but keep in mind that we don't really need this project right now. We just want to access the AVD. So now we have created our new project, but as I said, we don't really need this. So what I'm going to do now is in my menu bar in Android Studio, I have tools up here. See it? Oh, I can't click it. Why that? Uh, oh, okay. So we don't need the tips on startup. So close this. There we go. So I'm gonna hit Tools and then AVD Manager. And now this comes up and we're gonna click Create Virtual Device. And you can pick any device you want. Actually, you can pick the device that you would like to emulate and use later for your development with Framework7 and PhoneGap Cordova. And I'm gonna go for a Pixel 2 because it's the newest up-to-date device from Google. Next, you can choose which operating system you want to support. So I'm just going with Android P, the latest version, and download that. And of course, I need to accept. So this is going to take some time again until it has finished downloading and installed everything. So I'm just going to jump cut here again and see you again in a few minutes. Okay, so we're back and the installer has finished. So I'm going to click on finish. And yeah, I think we're there. I'm going to call this device. Can I call it differently? No, I can't. Yeah, but that's just fine. I'm going to stick with the default settings and hit finish. Just wait a little. Yeah. Okay, so now we have our default device for the emulation set up. You can add more devices if you want to, but for the moment we're fine with one, and that's why we're gonna close everything that's related to Android Studio, as we're not going to need it anymore because most of the stuff we're going from the command line interface through Cordova and PhoneGap. Okay, next we're going back to our GitHub website of the template and see how we can run the emulator. So for Android, we have to call sorry, we have to call npm run Cordova run Android. So I'm going to copy that and paste it in and run. Something that you have to keep in mind is usually would run your application just by calling Cordova run Android, but this would just deploy the default app for Cordova, and you always have to build it before you run it. So that's why this script is quite handy. And yeah. Building takes quite some time, and also running the emulator, like booting up and everything, that's going to take a long time. So for the first time at least, so I'm going to fast forward here a bit. As you can see, it has found our default emulator for the Pixel 2 and it's firing up the device. This is going to take some time though. However, in the latest version of the Android emulator, this has been speed up a little. But the first time always takes quite a few minutes. But once it's up and running, it's quite smooth actually. And there it is, starting up. And there we have our running Framework7 application with PhoneGap Cordova on Android emulator. So you can just go ahead from here and edit your source code and redeploy it. And it will be pretty much the same as you would be working in the browser. But what we want to do now is actually run this application on a real device, because on Android it's always a different thing between running your app on an emulator or on a real existing device. So what I have right here is my Android device. It's an Huawei P9 Lite, which is a very cheap phone, but it's really cool. I like it. I think there's Android 7 installed, version 7 installed on this device. Let me just go ahead. Actually, it doesn't really matter which version you're running, but let me look. Yeah, it's Android version 7. So this will be working fine. It always depends a little on for which device you want to deploy and which versions you want to support, because there are so many different Android versions, and yeah, the OS situation is very fragmented. I usually develop for anything higher of at least 5 or 6, but yeah. So we have to do some modifications here. So what you do, you go to settings, okay? And you scroll down to the bottom and click on About Phone right here, and then you check where it says build number, okay? And then you tap that setting 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And when you've done that, you're actually in developer mode. Now, I've already done that before, and that's why it says you are already in developer mode. But if you're not, you should be now. And then you go back. Now you should see the develop options over here. So I click that. And now you can turn them on, or probably they're already turned on. And make sure that your device is connected to your computer via USB. And then I'll scroll down a little, and there should be an option which says USB debugging. Okay, so you enable that and say okay. And this is the most important part. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going back to our computer. Now, in order to check if your device is correctly connected, go enter ADB and enter devices, and it should show up your hardware device, which it does in this case. So now I make sure that you're on your project path and run Cordova, run Android -- device. And always make sure that your device is unlocked. And as you can see, it's now running your Framework7 app on a real device. So from now on, you can start coding and have fun with your PhoneGap container. And yeah, next time I think I had the idea of going full stack. So maybe we're going to try to, I don't know, maybe build a blog or something using Node.js and MongoDB. Not sure about that yet. So let me know if you would be interested in a complete full stack app from start to the end, which is gonna take a little longer than usual. So it won't be a quick video, but still let me know if that's interesting for you. And as usual, you can follow me on Twitter on timo.ernst, oh no, sorry, on twitter.com/timo_ernst. And if this video was helpful to you, click on the like button. And if you want to see the new full stack tutorial, subscribe to this channel by clicking on the subscribe button. And see you next time. Bye.